Week 12 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers this week. The first one, the New York Giants. Giants, what a game they had last week versus the Washington Commanders, creating 6 turnovers and putting up a monster performance in that one, where they had 19 points allowed, 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, a pick 6, and 3 fumble recoveries. So this week, another good matchup versus the Patriots. Give up the 4th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And right now, we know it's been a train wreck over there this year for New England. Not many options on the offensive side of the ball. Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry, and Ramondre Stevenson really the only threats. But this Giant defense last week, like I said, they got it added at a good quarterback at Sam Howell, made him make some turnovers. And if it's Bailey Zapp or Mac Jones, either quarterback, I believe this Giant defensive line could create pressure. And this is going to be a low-scoring game, I believe, as well, between these two teams. So right now, well, the Giants are still out there in 91% of fantasy leagues, and they're a decent option to use. They're definitely a sleeper, and surprisingly, they should be owned in more fantasy leagues. What not for this week is obviously a streaming option. The next DST is the Los Angeles Rams, so the Rams is a 1-week use and a sleeper option. They have a good matchup at the Arizona Cardinals, where we know this Cardinal offense, they turn the football over a lot, and they really haven't scored many points this season. So the last few weeks for this Ram DST, they've actually had some mediocre performances. Week 9 at the Packers, 20 points allowed, 4 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries. And Week 11 versus Seattle, 16 points allowed, 2 sacks, and an INT. So this week here, division matchup, indoors at Arizona. Their offensive line isn't all that great. And I think this game, this Ram defense could go out there, get a few sacks on Murray. And for the most part, Murray's good for a few turnovers as well at most points. So right now, while the Rams have had a good track record versus Arizona over the last few seasons, I think their defense gets the job done and has a decent sleeper outing this week. In the third and final defense DST unit I have as a sleeper is the Houston Texans. So this Texan defense, I know it's a young D, but they've been going out there and they've been making plays and winning ball games, especially winning the last 4 out of 5. So the last few weeks here for Houston, Week 10 at Cincinnati, I know 27 points allowed, but they did have 4 sacks and 2 interceptions in that great victory. And then Week 11 versus Arizona, in that game, 16 points allowed, 3 sacks, an interception, and a fumble recovery. So right now, good matchup here, Week 12 versus Jacksonville. Give up the 8th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. I know Jacksonville last week, they exploded and have the monster performance, putting up a big game versus the Tennessee Titans. But I think this Texan defense, they can make a few plays. Trevor Lawrence, besides last week's game, he's been a middle of the pack to poor quarterback the majority of the season. So right now, well, the Texans are out there in 86% of fantasy leagues, and I think they could create some turnovers and some sacks in this game. I have him as a sleeper option. So that's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers for Week 12 of the fantasy football season.